Now, across Texas, the issue is.
I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas.
And I'm Greg Krugen in Houston.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin, and this is Texas, the issue is.
Well, for at least news people, we were relieved because it didn't take days to find out who won the presidential election. Donald Trump winning a second term, and it was very convincing. And it wasn't just the top of the ticket where Democrats struggled, specifically in Texas. And now some are saying that Texas Democrats need to hit the reset button. Key swing states and the blue wall crumbled, resulting in a second term for Donald Trump. In Texas, Democrats are dealing with their own problems.
What Texas Democrats have been doing is not working. It's not just a question of be patient and slowly we'll get there. They've been moving in reverse.
I give you my word, I will continue to defend with every fiber of my being in the United States Senate.
The 30-year streak continues after Senator Ted Cruz handily beat Dallas Congressman Colin Allred. In the final weeks and days, polls painted a picture of a close race. Cruz beat Allred by nearly 10 points. Allred only winning 18 counties. Beto O'Rourke won 32 in 2018.
Was it the abortion issue that is to credit this just big loss for Democrats? Or is it Latino men breaking for Trump and more white men showing up and voting for Trump and some black men voting for Trump? Where do you see the break in Texas and nationally?
I think the problem was the overwhelming single-minded focus on the abortion issue. It came to dominate their whole appeal. And virtually every Colin Allred ad that you saw was about abortion, was about, quote unquote, Ted Cruz's abortion ban. And at some point, that was just not going to move enough voters. Yes, there are voters that care about abortion, but in the polls, it factored in maybe third, fourth among voters' priorities and concerns.
The Democrat woes continued in the state legislature. Governor Abbott, pro-voucher endorsed candidates, won enough House seats to ensure he has the votes to pass his school choice plan in 2025.
There was a tidal wave of support for those House candidates that I supported. And we have more than enough members of the Texas House of Representatives elected last night to make sure that school choice is going to pass.
Republicans also swept 4 Democrat-held seats in the 5th Court of Appeals. Border counties, once a Democrat stronghold, continues to become more red. Donald Trump and Texas Republicans made significant gains with Latino voters, specifically Hispanic men. In 2020, Biden carried multiple border counties by double digits. Tuesday, Trump won those counties by 3 to 6%.
We are witnessing clearly an ongoing realignment of the Hispanic electorate. It's been progressing over several cycles. It continued this time, and it's not about any one thing, but the Latino communities, particularly in the border counties, they are opposed to illegal immigration. They see day by day the effects in their communities of turmoil at the border. They are morally and socially conservative on a lot of issues.
James Carville has famously said, "Is the economy stupid?" What role did the economy play in all this? And clearly the message didn't get across that things are better, but that didn't matter to voters, right?
Voters are still chafing at the price increases that they saw in 2021, 2022. Even though the rate of inflation has come down, they still are saying, look, groceries and insurance and my house note and automobiles and all these other things just cost a lot more than they did a few years ago. And that resulted in some dissatisfaction with the Biden-Harris administration, and voters reacted really negatively when they kept trying to tell them everything's fine, it's all in your head. Well, they didn't feel like that was the case.
They certainly didn't, and the polls, well, the vote tally showed that. My word for that is rebirth. Rudy, what is your word?
Stephen, I'm going to go with miscalculation.
All right, Greg, what about you?
Stephen, my word is watershed.
All right, the Fox Texas Trio will have a lot to discuss right after this break. The Fox Texas trio is back. Donald Trump is now president-elect again, and he won in convincing fashion. Greg, let's start with you. Did Democrats go too all in on the abortion topic?
Stephen, I think it was a matter of overemphasis and overdependence to the exclusion and neglect of other critical issues. It's my belief that Harris and Allred lost on the traditional bellwether issue of delivering economic prosperity. What voters got from the Democrats was an offer of additional government handouts like tax credits for business startups and first-time home buyers, all on the national credit card. What voters seem to crave more is an environment where they can actually flourish without aid from Uncle Sam, the kind of marketplace they believe Donald Trump created in his first term and is pledging to initiate again.
Rudy, do you agree?
Yeah, but let's do some historical perspective. Abortion certainly was the very hot issue in the 2022 midterm elections. The Supreme Court sent the issue back to the states, and that lit a political fire with Democrats and even undecided voters. Abortion in 22 quickly overtook inflation concerns and was a big reason why the predicted midterm red wave, remember that one? It went splat. Now, in 24, Democrats clearly thought abortion would stay hot, which was a big miscalculation, my word. Abortion remains important to the Democrat base, but the exit polling coming out now shows a lot of the moderates and independent voters that they needed, well, they refocused on the economy and inflation. Plus, the party coup installing Harris as the nominee happened so late in this race. She had no time really to develop a solid economic plan, and it was another major miscalculation for Harris simply not to disassociate herself from Bidenomics. Stephen?
I agree with most of what you said, Rudy, and I heard one commentator on election night say that you have to look at the swing states, right? Some of the women who went to vote were already in states that had decent abortion laws, and so maybe the abortion issue didn't ring as loud for those moderate voters or voters who may have been on the fence. Let's transition a little to Texas. Greg, Donald Trump and Republicans made big gains with the Latino community, specifically Latino men. Is this a Trump reason, or is it a Republican shift in gaining more Latino voters?
I'll say this, Stephen. In an election with multiple storylines, I think the mass Latino defection to Trump and Cruz was the most compelling. In 2020, Biden won Texas Hispanics by 17. This year, Donald Trump was plus 10 with Latinos. That's an eye-popping 27-point swing. The shift among Latino men was even more colossal, 40%. Now, we are talking about the lion's share of 6.5 million eligible Latino voters in the Lone Star State and growing. For them, Democrats dwelling on abortion restrictions and defending transgender rights doesn't work. As they say in Laredo, no baile. If Republicans can convince these Latinos to stay on board after this cycle, it's a dagger through the heart of Democratic dreams of winning statewide, at least in my lifetime.
Rudy, does Texas Democrats, do they need a rebirth? Will they have to rebrand to be a different style of Democrat and not run on the same storylines that national Democrats are running on? Or is 2024 just an outlier?
Stephen, Democrats certainly miscalculated regarding the Hispanic vote, as Greg just talked about. The calls for a strategy reboot starting before the presidential and Senate races were called. But late in the week, I started seeing some pushback to a pullback to appease moderate voters by the Democrats. For example, there are calls right now for the resignation of the head of the Texas Democratic Party after he did an interview with KUT up here in Austin. He acknowledged that the transgender issue cost them votes and suggested that the party could continue broad support on gender identity, or, quote, you can understand that there's certain things that we just go too far on, unquote. Now, sex changes for children, biological males in girls' sports, and using tax dollars to pay for transgender sex change procedures, that got hot late in the state and national campaigns. But counting on that to remain a big hot button for the 26 midterms, that, I think, could be a miscalculation for the GOP.
Truth.
Yeah, I agree on that. And I think Democrats nationally and in Texas are going to have a hard come to Jesus moment. All right, that's all the time we have. To see this episode or any of our past ones, go to our station's YouTube channels.
Keep the conversation going on our social media.
The election is history, and it's high time to look ahead to 2025, a new Texas legislative session, a newly configured Congress, and a fresh administration forming in our nation's capital. So be sure and join us next week. And in the meantime, don't forget to let us know what you think the issue is.